Hey guys, tonight we're not drifting off to tales of grand empires or ancient wonders. Oh no. Tonight, we're going to dim the lights and tiptoe into a darker, more unsettling corner of history. A place where justice wasn't always blind, and punishment was often anything but merciful. We're traveling to the Korean peninsula, specifically to the era of the CHOSUN Dynasty, a period spanning over 500 years, from the late 14th to the late 19th century. You're about to discover some truly disturbing punishments from the CHOSUN Dynasty and more. Methods of maintaining order that might just make your skin crawl. You might think of ancient justice as simple and straightforward, but in Chosun Korea, it was an intricate, often brutal, and deeply ingrained part of society. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're out there somewhere in the quiet hum of your own corner of the world, let us know where you're listening from. Perhaps you're nestled in a cozy apartment in New York City, or maybe drifting off in a peaceful cottage in rural England. Wherever you are, just relax. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself stepping into a world governed by strict Confucian principles, where social order, hierarchy, and filial piety are paramount. In this society, justice isn't just about righting a wrong, it's about upholding the moral fabric of the state, ensuring that everyone knows their place, and deterring any deviation from the prescribed path. From the lowliest peasant to the highest official, everyone is subject to the law, and the punishments for breaking it can be shockingly severe. You might feel a chill creep down your spine as you realize just how precarious life could be under such a system, where a single misstep could lead to agonizing consequences. The legal system of Chosun was largely based on the Daejeon Tongpyeon, a comprehensive code that outlined crimes and their corresponding punishments. While seemingly rational on paper, its application often depended on the social status of the offender and the whims of local magistrates. You might be a commoner, facing a far harsher sentence for the same crime committed by a nobleman. This inherent inequality is one of the underlying horrors of the Chosun justice system, a chilling reminder that not all were equal before the law. One of the most common and visually impactful forms of punishment you'd encounter was the caning taehyung. Taehyung. Imagine yourself, a petty offender. Perhaps you were caught gambling or engaging in a minor dispute. You are brought before a magistrate, your heart pounding in your chest. The sentence is pronounced a certain number of strokes with a bamboo stick. You are forced to kneel, or sometimes lie face down, and the blows begin. The stick, usually made of bamboo or a similar sturdy wood, is thick and designed to inflict pain. You feel the sharp, stinging impact tearing at your skin, the searing pain radiating through your muscles. Each strike is a brutal reminder of your transgression. The number of strokes could vary widely, from a few dozen for minor infractions to over 100 for more serious ones. You might think, it's just a few strokes. But the reality is far more gruesome. The caning wasn't meant to be a light tap. It was designed to break the skin, to leave deep welts, and often to cause severe internal bruising. Many who received a high number of strokes would not survive the ordeal, succumbing to infection or internal injuries days later. Historians still debate the actual survival rates of those subjected to severe caning punishments in Chosun Korea. While records exist, the full extent of long-term injuries and subsequent deaths is difficult to ascertain, making it a subject of ongoing academic discussion. Some scholars argue that the true horror lies not just in the immediate pain, but in the lingering agony and the often fatal infections that followed. Beyond the physical pain, there was the immense public shame. You might be caned in the public square, your cries of agony echoing for all to hear. Your family, your neighbors, everyone you know, would witness your humiliation. This public spectacle was a crucial element of the punishment, designed not only to inflict pain on the offender, but also to serve as a stark warning to others. Imagine the overwhelming sense of disgrace, knowing that your reputation, your social standing, has been irrevocably tarnished. This social ostracization was often a punishment in itself, a psychological burden that could be as heavy as any physical wound. A little-known detail about Chosun caning is that there were specific regulations regarding the size and weight of the bamboo stick and the manner of its application, though these rules were often ignored or manipulated by corrupt officials to inflict more pain or even kill the accused. You might hear whispers of local magistrates who had a reputation for particularly brutal lashings, using heavier sticks or striking with more force than allowed by law. This arbitrary cruelty added another layer of horror to an already disturbing punishment, as justice could become a tool for personal vendetta or extortion. You also feel the constant threat of false accusation. In a society with limited means of investigation and powerful social hierarchies, it was not uncommon for individuals, particularly those of lower status, to be accused unjustly. Once accused, the path to prove your innocence was fraught with peril. Torture was often used to extract confessions, making it a terrifying possibility even for the innocent. This created a pervasive atmosphere of fear, where even a minor dispute could escalate into a life-threatening ordeal if you ran afoul of a powerful individual or a corrupt official. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling image of Chosun justice settle in your mind. The sounds of the bamboo stick, the cries of the accused, and the cold indifference of the crowd, all painting a grim picture of a society where order was maintained through pain and fear. You feel the ghostly sting of those ancient lashes, a stark reminder that in some historical eras, justice was a terrifying, agonizing process, and that even a minor transgression could lead to horrifying consequences that echo long after the bamboo falls silent. You're still there, lingering in the quiet hum of the narrative, perhaps feeling the ghostly sting of those ancient bamboo lashes. We've explored the common, brutal reality of caning in Chosun Korea. Now, let's move beyond the physical pain and delve into a different kind of torment, one that combines physical restraint with profound public humiliation and the agony of isolation. Chains, stocks, and isolation. You experience public shame and agonizing confinement. Imagine yourself as an offender in Chosun Korea, perhaps caught for theft or public disturbance, or even a more serious crime. You've been sentenced, and now you face a different kind of confinement. You are not merely locked away, you are put on display. You're suffering a public spectacle designed to deter others and reinforce the state's power. One of the most common devices for public humiliation and restraint was the kangyu cal, a heavy wooden collar. Picture this: you are forced to wear a large, cumbersome wooden frame around your neck, often square or rectangular, with a hole in the middle for your head. It's so wide that you cannot bring your hands to your mouth to eat, or even scratch an itch on your face. You can barely lie down, making sleep agonizingly difficult. This isn't just a collar, it's a portable prison, heavy and unwieldy, often weighing many kilograms. You feel the constant pressure on your neck, the chafing against your skin, and the sheer fatigue of carrying such a burden day and night. A little-known detail about the kangyu is that it was designed not only for public display, but also to prevent the wearer from feeding themselves without assistance, making them utterly dependent and highlighting their helplessness. You are paraded through the streets, or simply left in a public place, a market square, outside a government building for days, even weeks. You are a living example of imperial justice, a cautionary tale for all who pass by. Imagine the stares, the whispers, the pointing fingers. Children might gawk. Adults might avert their eyes in shame or disgust. Your dignity is stripped away, piece by painful piece. You are thirsty, hungry, exposed to the elements, unable to properly relieve yourself. The flies buzz around your face. The sun bakes down on you in summer, and the cold winds bite in winter. This combination of physical discomfort and profound public humiliation is designed to break your spirit, to make you wish for death. Beyond the kangyu, you might find yourself subjected to the stocks, moga, moka, a similar device, but one that pins your feet and sometimes hands as well. You are forced into an awkward, painful position, unable to move or stretch. This is often used for lesser offenses but still involves public exposure and prolonged discomfort. Or perhaps you are put into a wooden cage, gaden gamog, gachin gamok, a confined space where you can barely stand or sit. Further restricting movement and maximizing discomfort, often left in a public space. These aren't just holding cells, they are tools of degradation. The horror lies not just in the physical pain of the kang or the stocks, but in the relentless, inescapable isolation within public view. You are surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. No one can help you, no one can touch you, no one can offer solace, except perhaps a sympathetic passerby who might try to feed you a morsel of food or offer a sip of water, risking their own safety. This paradoxical isolation, being so visibly present yet so utterly detached from human comfort, is a chilling psychological torment. Historians still debate the effectiveness of public humiliation as a deterrent versus its role in simply dehumanizing offenders and entrenching social stratification. Some argue it was a vital part of maintaining social order, while others highlight its disproportionate impact on the poor and marginalized. This public display of suffering also served to reinforce the power of the state. You, as an observer, would internalize the message. This is what happens when you disobey. This is the consequence of challenging authority. It instilled a pervasive sense of fear, a constant reminder of the ever-present reach of the law and the brutality of its enforcement. It's like a macabre performance staged daily in the public square, starring real people in real agony. Even if you survive the immediate ordeal of the kangyu or the stocks, the long-term consequences are dire. Your body might be permanently scarred, your neck or limbs damaged from the weight and restricted movement. Your reputation is utterly ruined. You are marked as an outcast, a criminal, making it incredibly difficult to find work, to marry, or to integrate back into society. The punishment doesn't end when the wooden collar is removed. It follows you for the rest of your life. A brand of public disgrace. You might hear whispers of stories, perhaps a bit exaggerated, of individuals so desperate to escape the kang that they would try to starve themselves or perform impossible contortions. These desperate acts underscore the profound agony, both physical and mental, inflicted by these seemingly simple devices. It's not just a piece of wood, it's a tool of sustained torment, designed to break the spirit through exposure, pain, and utter helplessness. So, as you drift further into sleep, imagine yourself in the CHOSUN era, experiencing the chilling reality of ancient confinement. You feel the heavy wood around your neck, the unyielding grip on your limbs, the burning shame of countless eyes upon you. The silence of the night is occasionally punctuated by a phantom cough, or the creak of wood, a reminder of those who suffered in the stocks and kangyu. It is a truly horrifying thought, isn't it, that justice could manifest not just as pain, but as an agonizing public degradation, echoing long after the crowds have dispersed and the sun has set on your torment. You're still there, lingering in that quiet, unsettling space where the harsh realities of CHOSUN justice reside. We've explored the raw pain of caning and the public torment of kangus and stocks. Now, let's move beyond the confines of the city square and venture into a punishment that strips you of everything familiar, severing your ties to home, family, and status exile's bleak horizon. You walk a long road to a desolate, hopeless future. Imagine yourself as a high-ranking official, perhaps a scholar who dared to criticize the king, or a nobleman who fell out of favor in a deadly court intrigue. Or perhaps you're simply a commoner involved in a serious crime, or deemed a threat to social order. For many offenses in CHOSUN Korea, especially those involving political dissent or corruption, the sentence wasn't execution, but something arguably worse. Exile yujong yujong or guisa guisa, This wasn't just being sent away, it was a deliberate act of social death, a terrifying journey into the unknown. You are stripped of your titles, your property is confiscated, and your family's future hangs in the balance. You are then banished to a remote, often desolate region of the kingdom, far from the capital, far from everything you know. Picture this journey: you are marched, often on foot, for weeks or even months, under guard, exposed to the elements. The roads are rough, the food is scarce, and the indignity of your situation weighs heavily on your soul. Every step takes you further from home, further from hope. The destination itself is usually a barren, unproductive land, a remote island off the coast, a desolate mountain valley, or a harsh northern frontier. These places are chosen precisely because they are inhospitable, undesirable, and far removed from any centers of power or comfort. You are not just confined, you are abandoned to a life of hardship and isolation. Imagine being a cultured scholar, used to the intellectual vibrancy of the capital, suddenly thrust into a primitive existence, struggling to find food, exposed to harsh weather, and surrounded by strangers who view you with suspicion or contempt. A particularly horrifying aspect of exile was the deliberate severing of social ties. In Chosun society, your identity, your security, and your very existence were deeply intertwined with your family, your clan, and your social network. Exile ripped you from this fabric. You were forbidden from communicating with your family, and they, in turn, were often forbidden from assisting you. This complete isolation, this forced severance from all human connection, was a profound psychological torture. You might spend years, even decades, in this state of living death, constantly longing for home, for the faces of your loved ones, knowing that you might never see them again. Historians still debate the precise psychological impact of long-term exile on individuals in Chosun Korea, as personal accounts are rare. But the consistent use of this punishment suggests its effectiveness as a tool of social and political control. Some scholars interpret surviving poems and letters from exiles as expressing profound melancholia and despair. Beyond the isolation, there was the constant threat of further degradation or even death. You might be forced into hard labor at your place of exile, or live under the constant threat of local officials who could exploit or abuse you with impunity. Your health would likely deteriorate due to poor diet, harsh living conditions, and exposure. Many exiles did not survive the ordeal, succumbing to illness, starvation, or despair. This wasn't a gentle retirement. It was a slow, agonizing process of degradation and eventual demise. For political exiles, there was always the lingering fear of re-exile or even execution. The whims of the court could change. A new king might ascend, or a political rival might gain power, leading to your immediate recall for further punishment, or a summary execution. You lived with the constant shadow of potential death, never truly free even in your desolation. This pervasive insecurity added another layer of torment to an already bleak existence. The use of exile also served as a powerful deterrent. You, as an observer, would witness the swift and complete ruin of individuals and their families as they were cast out from society. This served as a chilling warning: deviate from the path, challenge the king, or engage in serious crime. And you too could face this fate. It was a clear demonstration of the absolute power of the monarch and the state to erase individuals from the social landscape. A little-known detail about Chosun exile is that some exiles, particularly scholars, continued their academic pursuits in their desolate locations, sometimes even influencing local culture or becoming respected teachers, inadvertently spreading knowledge from the capital to remote areas. However, these were rare exceptions, and their lives were still marked by profound loss and hardship. You might hear whispers of these resilient individuals, a small flicker of hope in an otherwise bleak system. But even their achievements were overshadowed by the immense personal cost. So, as you drift further into sleep, imagine the endless road stretching before you, leading to a desolate horizon under the Chosun sky. You feel the crushing weight of loneliness, the ache of separation, and the gnawing fear of a future without hope. Exile was a terrifying weapon in the Chosun legal arsenal, designed not just to remove an individual from society, but to utterly break their spirit through isolation and unending hardship. It's a truly horrifying thought, isn't it? To be condemned to a life that is, in essence, a prolonged living death, far from all that you once held dear. You're still there, lingering in that quiet, unsettling space where the long, lonely roads of exile stretch into the distance. We've explored the social death and physical hardship of banishment in Chosun Korea. Now, let's venture into an even more disturbing realm. The grim process by which confessions were extracted and justice, or what passed for it, was brutalized torture's cruel design. You witness methods meant to break body and spirit. Imagine yourself as an accused individual in Chosun Korea. Perhaps you are innocent, caught in a web of false accusations, or merely suspected of a crime. The initial interrogations are often verbal, but if you deny the charges, or if the magistrate believes you are withholding information, the next step is horrifyingly predictable. You are about to enter a world where physical pain is not just a punishment, but a tool, systematically applied to extract truth or compliance. The Chosun legal system, heavily influenced by Confucian and Chinese legal traditions, permitted the use of torture to obtain confessions. This wasn't some rogue practice. It was an officially sanctioned method of interrogation, a horrifying facet of jurisprudence. You are brought into a special chamber, often dimly lit, with an array of instruments that fill your heart with dread. The atmosphere is thick with fear, the air perhaps still carrying the faint scent of sweat and pain from previous victims. One of the most common forms of torture was the flogging gonjang or taehyong, but applied with greater force and intent than simple punishment. While we've discussed caning as a punishment, it was also used during interrogation, applied repeatedly and with increasing intensity until a confession was obtained. You feel the searing pain on your bare skin. Blow after blow, each strike a hammer against your will. The pain is designed to overwhelm, to break down your resistance, making you willing to say anything to make it stop. Beyond the bamboo, you might face the leg press jul. Imagine your legs being placed between two wooden planks, which are then steadily tightened with ropes or screws, slowly crushing your bones and muscles. You feel an agonizing, unbearable pressure, as if your limbs are being ripped apart. The pain is excruciating, designed to be agonizing without necessarily being immediately lethal. This method targets the lower body, often leading to permanent disability even if you survive. A little-known detail is that the degree of pressure and the duration of this torture could be precisely controlled by the torturer, allowing for prolonged agony and psychological manipulation. Another horrifying method was the bone-splitting stick nagang, where heavy wooden sticks or poles were placed between the joints of the legs or arms and then forced apart, designed to dislocate or break bones. You hear the sickening crunch, feel the searing pain of torn ligaments and fractured bones. Your body convulses with agony, and your mind races, desperate for a way to make it cease. This isn't about obtaining information. It's about breaking your physical and mental fortitude. Then there were the various forms of suspension and binding. You might be hung by your wrists, or bound in contorted positions, your limbs aching and joints dislocating under the strain. Imagine the slow, creeping agony as your body's weight pulls your joints apart, the muscles screaming in protest. This method often left victims with permanent shoulder or wrist damage, even if they were eventually released. The psychological torment of torture is as brutal as the physical. You are stripped of your dignity, your will, and your sense of self. You are completely at the mercy of your tormentors, who often use psychological tactics, threats against your family, promises of release to coerce you into confessing. You feel the chilling realization that your innocence means nothing. Only a confession, true or false, will end the agony. Historians still debate the reliability of confessions obtained under torture in Chosun, Korea. While legal codes stipulated that torture should only be used to elicit truth, the inherent unreliability of such confessions is a well-known historical problem, raising questions about the true justice of the system. Some scholars argue that officials often accepted any confession, regardless of its truthfulness, simply to close a case and move on. This systematic application of pain wasn't just for criminals. It was a constant shadow over anyone who came into contact with the legal system. It created a pervasive atmosphere of fear, where the mere accusation of a crime could lead to unimaginable suffering, even for the innocent. You learned to dread the very thought of the local magistrate's court, knowing that within its walls, pain could be expertly wielded to extract words you didn't mean. A humorous, if dark, anecdote from this period, you might hear a whispered joke about how even the most stubborn donkey would confess to being a horse after a few sessions with the jewel. It's a macabre way to cope with the pervasive dread. A gallows humor that highlights the absurd and terrifying reality of justice by pain. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling images of Chosun torture methods fade into the shadows. You feel the phantom aches of constricted limbs, the ghost of searing blows, and the profound, terrifying knowledge that in that ancient world, truth was often extracted not by reason, but by agony. It is a truly horrifying thought, isn't it? That the very system meant to uphold justice could become a master of its cruelest forms, breaking not just bodies but spirits. In its relentless pursuit of a confession, true or false, you're still there, lingering in that quiet, unsettling space where the echoes of ancient torture methods still resonate, leaving a phantom ache in your mind. We've explored the direct, brutal punishments inflicted upon the accused. Now, let's widen our lens and witness a chilling, pervasive aspect of Chosun justice that extended its reach far beyond the individual offender, a terrifying ripple effect that could shatter entire lives, families' shared burden. You feel the terrifying ripple effect of one's crime. Imagine yourself as a member of a family in Chosun, Korea. Your identity, your social standing, and your very survival are deeply intertwined with your clan, your lineage, and the reputation of your household. Unlike many modern societies that focus primarily on individual culpability, the Chosun legal system, steeped in Confucian principles, often viewed crime not just as a personal failing, but as a stain on the entire family or even the clan. This collective responsibility could turn a single transgression into a multi-generational nightmare. You might be the wife, child, or parent of someone accused of a serious crime, perhaps treason, grave robbery, or a particularly heinous murder. Your loved one is arrested, interrogated, and subjected to the horrors we've already discussed. But the terrifying truth is, your suffering has just begun. The concept of yunjuaje, or familial implication, means that the crime of one person could bring ruin upon their entire family, sometimes even their extended relatives. For severe offenses like treason, the consequences were utterly devastating. Imagine being part of the family of a nobleman accused of plotting against the king. You might witness your home being ransacked, your property confiscated, and your entire household seized. The men of the family, regardless of their actual involvement, could face execution or permanent exile to remote, desolate regions. Remember those bleak horizons. The women, even the elderly and children, could be subjected to enslavement, often becoming gisang female entertainers or forced laborers for the state, or sold into servitude to other noble families. A little-known detail is that historical records contain heartbreaking petitions from innocent family members, often women, begging for mercy or the right to mourn their executed relatives, highlighting the immense suffering caused by this system. You feel the crushing weight of collective guilt. Even if you are entirely innocent, your life is utterly derailed, not by your own actions, but by the alleged actions of a relative. Your social standing, once perhaps respected, is now utterly destroyed. You become an outcast, a pariah, forever tainted by the crime of your kin. Imagine trying to find work or a suitable marriage. When your family name carries such a stigma, the shame is a living entity, following you everywhere, poisoning every aspect of your existence. This system of collective punishment served a powerful deterrent. It wasn't just the individual who feared the law. It was every family member, knowing that their own fate was tied to the conduct of their relatives. You would be constantly vigilant, subtly pressuring your kin to adhere to social norms and legal statutes, because their misdeeds could mean your ruin. This pervasive fear created a powerful, though often oppressive, form of social control, ensuring compliance through the threat of shared catastrophe. Historians still debate the ethical justifications and long-term societal impacts of Yeonjwaje in Chosun Korea. Some argue it was an effective tool for maintaining political stability and deterring treason in a dynastic society, while others condemn it as a profoundly unjust and inhumane practice that perpetuated cycles of suffering. Beyond direct familial implication, lesser crimes could also bring significant hardship to families. If a man was caned publicly, the shame would extend to his parents and children. If he was exiled, his family would lose their primary provider and endure the social stigma, even if not directly punished. The economic ripple effect of one family member's punishment could plunge the entire household into poverty, forcing them to sell their land, borrow heavily, or even resort to begging. You feel the slow, agonizing erosion of dignity and livelihood that such an event could trigger, a silent tragedy unfolding within countless homes. The horror of this system lies in its inherent injustice. It punishes the innocent along with the guilty, often with little or no consideration for their actual complicity. You might be a child, born into a family that once held a high position, now forced into slavery, simply because your grandfather displeased the king. Your dreams, your potential, your very future are crushed, not by your own missteps, but by an inescapable lineage. A chilling aspect of this is the historical record of petitions from officials pleading with the king to not extend certain punishments to the innocent family members of a condemned traitor. These very petitions, even when successful, highlight the prevailing norm of collective responsibility and the constant threat it posed to every family, especially those close to power. You can imagine the heart-wrenching pleas, the desperate attempts to salvage even a shred of dignity or survival for those caught in the cruel net of imperial justice. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the terrifying reality of a family's shared burden in Chosun Korea settle over you. Imagine the terror of knowing that a single misstep by a loved one could bring ruin, not just to them, but to your entire existence. You feel the ghostly weight of confiscated property, the phantom shackles on innocent hands, and the profound, enduring shame that followed families for generations. It's a truly horrifying thought, isn't it? That justice could be so pervasive, so unforgiving, that it punished not just the individual, but the very bonds of blood and love. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient family burdens and societal fear, the echoes of collective punishment still lingering. We've explored the direct physical torments, the public shaming, the social death of exile, and the terrifying ripple effect on families in Chosun Korea. Now, let's delve into an even more refined and chilling aspect of the legal system, one that promises a swift end, but often carries a heavy psychological weight. The serpent's silk cord. You face an honorable death, cloaked in dread. Imagine yourself as a high-ranking official, perhaps a scholar official who became embroiled in a political factional struggle, or a royal family member accused of a serious transgression against the crown. Your crime is severe enough to warrant the death penalty, but your social status, your lineage, or sometimes even the king's subtle mercy, grants you a specific, peculiar form of execution self-administered poisoning, or more commonly, strangulation by a silk cord sasa sasa or jasa jasa. This is presented as an honorable death, a privilege compared to public beheading or dismemberment. yet it is cloaked in its own unique form of dread. You are informed of the king's decree. A royal emissary arrives at your home, often with a tray bearing the instruments of your demise, a bowl of poison, or the infamous silk cord. The chilling aspect is that you are expected to perform the act yourself, or at least cooperate in it. This isn't a quick, violent seizure. It's a solemn, ceremonial affair, designed to underscore the absolute power of the monarch and your acceptance of your fate. You are offered the honor of choosing your own end. But the choice is no choice at all. If it's poison, you are expected to drink it. You feel the cold dread as you raise the bowl to your lips, knowing that every swallow brings you closer to the final darkness. If it's the silk cord, it's often a more collaborative, and arguably more disturbing, ritual. Imagine two royal executioners, or sometimes even your own servants. Holding each end of a long, thin silk cord, you are expected to place the cord around your own neck, or acquiesce as it is placed there. Then, the ends are pulled by the executioners, slowly, steadily, until your breath is cut off. You feel the pressure building, the air leaving your lungs, the world fading to black. This slow, intimate suffocation is designed to be agonizing, a prolonged farewell to life, masked as a dignified departure. A little-known detail about the silk cord execution is that the silk itself, being smooth and strong, made the process relatively clean but still agonizingly slow, as it compressed the trachea without immediately severing blood flow to the brain, prolonging consciousness. This meant the victim remained aware for a longer period, intensifying the horror. Historians still debate the true motivation behind the honorable nature of these executions. Some argue it was a genuine act of mercy, allowing the condemned to die with dignity and avoid public disgrace, while others contend it was a psychological tool designed to enhance the spectacle of royal power and ensure passive compliance even in death. This form of execution was often reserved for the yangban, the scholar official class, or members of the royal family. It was a class-specific privilege, a chilling reminder that even in death, hierarchy persisted. You might hear whispers among the commoners about the silk cord death as a sign of imperial favor, even as they shuddered at the thought of it. The psychological torture involved in facing your own end, with this strange pretense of choice, is immense. You are forced to confront your mortality directly, without the suddenness of a blade. The horror also extends to your family. While this form of execution might spare them the complete ruin of public dismemberment or extensive familial implication, though lesser familial implication might still occur, they are forced to witness your final moments of dignity. Knowing it is a facade, they live with the knowledge of your chosen, yet forced, end. The ritual itself, the silent tension in the room, the controlled nature of your death, adds to the chilling memory they will carry. This honorable death was often a stark contrast to the brutal public executions reserved for commoners or those who committed crimes of profound social transgression. While avoiding the dismemberment or beheading in front of a crowd, it brought the terror directly into your private space, making it an intimate and deeply personal horror. You are alone with your fate, surrounded by silence, save for the tightening of the cord or the gulp of poison. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling image of the serpent's silk cord settle over you. Imagine the quiet dread of the royal emissary's arrival, the cold precision of the ceremony, and the agonizing slowness of an honorable death chosen for you. You feel the phantom pressure, the fading breath, and the profound, unsettling knowledge that in Chosun Korea, even an act of mercy could be cloaked in its own unique, chilling form of horror. It's a truly disturbing thought, isn't it? That dignity could be granted only in the method of your demise, not in the right to live. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient forms of justice and the chilling honor of a chosen death. We've explored the direct pains of Chosun punishments, from the bamboo lash to the silk cord. Now, let's delve into an even more extreme and utterly terrifying realm of state-sanctioned violence. Punishments reserved for the gravest of offenses, particularly those against the supreme authority rebellion's gruesome price. You witness the horrific consequences of treason. Imagine yourself as a peasant, a merchant, or even a low-ranking official living in CHOSUN, Korea. You are acutely aware of the absolute power of the king and the imperial court. To challenge this authority, to conspire against the throne, or to engage in any act deemed treasonous, yoksin is to commit the ultimate crime. And the punishment for such an offense is not merely death. It is designed to be a spectacle of maximum horror. A chilling deterrent meant to instill absolute terror in the hearts of all who witness or hear of it. The primary form of execution for treason was often dismemberment, nungjichocham, or lingqi in Chinese, though its practice in Chosun might have varied. While the more extreme forms of lingqi death by 1,000 cuts were more prevalent in China, the concept of public dismemberment was also used in Korea to send an unequivocal message. Imagine yourself in a public square. A crowd gathered, held back by stern guards. The accused, a traitor, is brought forth. The executioners begin their gruesome work, systematically severing limbs or other body parts. You hear the screams, the gurgling, and the sickening sounds of flesh and bone being torn apart. This isn't just about ending a life, it's about utterly annihilating the body, preventing any chance of burial or spiritual repose, and serving as a brutal object lesson. The horror of dismemberment lies not only in the physical agony, but in its profound psychological impact on the public. You are forced to witness the utter destruction of a human being, a spectacle designed to shatter any thought of defiance. The message is clear. This is what happens when you challenge the divine right of the king, when you threaten the stability of the realm. The execution grounds become a theater of terror, where the power of the state is demonstrated in its most raw and horrifying form. Historians still debate the frequency and exact methods of such extreme dismemberment in Chosun Korea, as detailed eyewitness accounts are rare and often sensationalized. Some scholars argue that while the threat was potent, the actual full-blown lingqi, as practiced in China, was less common, perhaps reserved for the absolute worst offenders, while others suggest its conceptual terror was widespread regardless of its literal prevalence. Beyond the immediate execution, the punishment for treason extended far beyond the individual, reflecting the family's shared burden we discussed earlier, but amplified to an even more terrifying degree. If you were a family member of a convicted traitor, particularly a male, you faced immediate execution by beheading or strangulation, regardless of your innocence or age. Children, even infants, could be executed, ensuring that the treacherous bloodline was utterly eradicated. Women might be enslaved or exiled to remote islands, their lives shattered. You feel the chilling fear that permeates the air around a traitor's family, knowing that their mere association condemns them to a horrifying fate. The concept of 3 exterminations, samjog, extermination of 3 generations of relatives, or 9 exterminations, gujog, myeoljok. Extermination of 9 generations of relatives was the ultimate expression of this collective punishment, though the actual scope of 9 exterminations was more symbolic for extreme treason, meaning a total annihilation of the lineage. Imagine the terror of knowing that not just your immediate family, but your distant cousins, your in-laws, everyone remotely connected to you, could be swept away in a tide of state-sanctioned murder, simply because of one person's perceived crime. This wasn't merely a threat. It was, on rare but horrific occasions, a reality designed to leave no trace of the offending lineage. The bodies of executed traitors were often displayed publicly as a further deterrent. You might see severed heads or dismembered limbs hung from city gates or poles, left to rot as a gruesome warning to all. This ultimate degradation of the body, even after death, was meant to deny the deceased any dignity in the afterlife and to instill maximum terror in the living. It was a visceral reminder of the price of defiance, a horrifying spectacle designed to burn itself into the memory of every citizen. A little-known detail is that even the language surrounding treason was carefully controlled. Simply speaking ill of the king, or even overhearing seditious talk and not reporting it, could lead to severe punishment, sometimes even implicating those around you. This created a pervasive climate of suspicion and self-censorship, where silence was often the only safe option. You learn to guard your words, your thoughts, and your associations with extreme caution, knowing that the smallest misstep could lead to the most horrifying consequences. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling images of rebellion's gruesome price settle over you. Imagine the terror of public dismemberment, the collective cries of innocent families dragged into ruin, and the chilling display of human remains. You feel the ghost of that absolute fear, the pervasive dread that permeated a society where the ultimate crime was met with the ultimate, utterly terrifying, and tragically widespread retribution. It's a truly horrifying thought, isn't it? That justice, when serving an absolute power, could become so utterly, meticulously cruel, extending its reach even beyond the grave to obliterate a lineage. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient cruelty, the horrifying echoes of treason's gruesome price still ringing in your ears. We've journeyed through the various methods of pain, shame, exile, and collective punishment, all designed to enforce order in Chosun Korea. Now, let's consider a final, chilling dimension of this punitive system, one that often extended punishment beyond the natural end of life, beyond the grave's reach. You fear punishment that extends past death. Imagine yourself as a chosen subject, living in a world deeply intertwined with spiritual beliefs, ancestral worship, and the profound importance of a proper burial. The afterlife, the reverence for one's ancestors, and the concept of filial piety were not mere traditions. They were fundamental pillars of your existence. To disrupt these spiritual foundations was a horror perhaps even greater than physical pain, for it threatened your very soul and the peace of your lineage. For those who committed the most heinous crimes, particularly treason or extreme acts of immorality, the punishment did not cease with their last breath. The state, in its absolute power, often sought to inflict punishment post-mortem, a chilling display of authority designed to utterly disgrace the deceased and terrorize the living. You would hear whispers, terrified accounts, of bodies being exhumed, desecrated, and even dismembered, long after the individual had died. This act of desecration was the ultimate humiliation, robbing the deceased of any hope of a peaceful afterlife and bringing profound shame upon their surviving family. One such horrifying practice was chasing down the corpse, chusi, where an already deceased traitor's body would be exhumed and then subjected to a formal, albeit symbolic, execution. Imagine the scene: a coffin is dug up. The decaying remains of a once powerful figure are brought forth, and then formally beheaded or dismembered in a public spectacle. You might be forced to witness this gruesome event, a stark reminder that even death could not free you from the long arm of the law. This served as a posthumous condemnation, erasing any lingering respect for the individual and ensuring their memory was forever associated with infamy. A little-known detail is that sometimes, if the criminal had died before being apprehended, this posthumous punishment would be the only official execution they received, making it a powerful statement by the state about its absolute reach. Beyond the formal posthumous execution, there was the denial of a proper burial. In Chosun society, a dignified burial and the performance of ancestral rites were paramount for the peace of the deceased's soul and the well-being of their descendants. For grave offenders, particularly traitors, this right was often revoked. Their bodies might be left exposed to the elements, denied a tomb, or buried in unmarked, disrespectful graves. You would know that without proper rites, the deceased's spirit would wander aimlessly, causing misfortune to their descendants. This spiritual torment, extending beyond the grave, was a terrifying prospect. The destruction of family shrines and ancestral tablets was another deeply disturbing posthumous punishment. Ancestral tablets Sinju, inscribed with the names of the deceased, were housed in family shrines and were central to ancestral worship. For heinous crimes, these tablets might be publicly smashed or burned, obliterating the spiritual link between the living and the dead ancestors. This act was not merely symbolic. It was believed to bring calamity upon the surviving family members and to condemn the deceased's soul to eternal wandering. You would feel the profound shock and horror of seeing such an act, knowing that it severed the very lifeline to your past and jeopardized your future. Historians still debate the specific interpretations of spiritual ramifications believed to occur from such posthumous desecrations in Chosun popular belief, with some focusing on family shame and others on literal spiritual torment. This extension of punishment beyond death served multiple purposes. It was the ultimate expression of the king's absolute power, demonstrating that even death could not shield you from his wrath. It was also a profound form of public shaming, ensuring that the memory of the condemned was utterly disgraced, serving as a chilling warning for generations to come. You learn that defying the state could lead not only to your own painful demise, but also to the eternal suffering of your soul and the ruin of your entire lineage. A particular chilling anecdote, perhaps more widespread in legend than common practice, involved the idea of punishing not just the deceased, but even their inanimate possessions or symbols. While perhaps a folk tale, the concept of a person's house being razed, their fields salted, or their personal effects destroyed after their death for a heinous crime, underscored the pervasive nature of this ultimate disgrace. It reflected the notion that every trace of the offender must be wiped from existence, both physical and spiritual. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling thought of punishment extending beyond the grave settle over you. Imagine the terror of knowing that even after your last breath, your body could be desecrated, your spiritual peace denied, and your ancestors' resting places violated. You feel the ghostly chill of a system that reached beyond the veil of death, a truly horrifying and deeply unsettling aspect of Chosun justice that aimed to ensure not just physical demise, but utter annihilation of being and memory. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That for some, there was no true escape. Even in death, you're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient retributions, the chilling notion of punishment extending beyond the grave still echoing in your mind. We've journeyed through the raw physical pain, the public shaming, the social death of exile, the agonizing family burdens, and even the posthumous degradations of Chosun justice. Now, let's bring it all together and consider the overarching psychological landscape created by such a system. Justice's echoing chill. You contemplate a system designed to instill absolute fear. Imagine yourself as an ordinary person living in Chosun Korea. You are surrounded by a legal and social framework designed not just to punish crime, but to preempt it. Every aspect of the system, from the public nature of caning to the ultimate horror of collective punishment and posthumous disgrace, serves a singular, terrifying purpose to instill a deep, pervasive, and absolute fear that permeates every layer of society. This fear is not just about avoiding personal pain, it's about avoiding the ruin of your family, the desecration of your ancestors, and the complete obliteration of your existence, both physical and spiritual. You live in a society where surveillance, while not always overt, is constant. Neighbors are encouraged, sometimes even coerced, to report on each other. Officials have broad powers to investigate and accuse. The very air around you seems to hum with the unspoken understanding that a single misstep, a careless word, or an unfortunate association could lead to unimaginable consequences. This creates a chilling environment where trust is a luxury, and self-censorship becomes a vital survival skill. You learn to guard your tongue, to choose your friends carefully, and to never, ever question authority openly. The public nature of many punishments, the kang in the marketplace, the caning in the town square, the execution of traitors, serves as a constant, visceral reminder of the state's power. You might walk past a public display of stocks on your way to the market, or see the aftermath of a particularly brutal caning. These aren't just isolated events. They are recurring spectacles, designed to etch the consequences of disobedience into your very soul. You internalize the message, this could be me, this could be my family. This daily exposure to harsh justice creates a profound, almost instinctive, fear of the law. The concept of collective responsibility, which we've discussed, is a particularly potent form of this fear. You aren't just responsible for your own actions. You're responsible for the actions of your entire family. Imagine the pressure this puts on you. Every decision you make, every word you utter, must be weighed against the potential ruin it could bring upon your parents, your spouse, your children. This extends the chilling reach of justice into the very heart of the family unit, turning love and loyalty into a potential vulnerability. Historians still debate the long-term psychological effects of such a fear-based system on individual autonomy and social cohesion in Chosun Korea. Some argue it fostered a strong sense of community responsibility, while others point to the pervasive anxiety and suppression of individual expression. A little-known detail is that even the language of the Chosun legal codes was often designed to instill fear. Punishments were meticulously categorized and described in grim detail, ensuring that everyone, from the highest official to the lowest peasant, understood the precise agony that awaited them for various infractions. While these codes aimed for clarity, they also painted a terrifying picture of a world where justice was both omnipresent and unsparing. You can almost hear the official reading out the specific number of strokes, the type of stick, the length of exile, each detail a precisely calculated dose of dread. The lack of avenues for appeal or effective defense, especially for commoners, further amplified this fear. Once caught in the legal machine, escape was nearly impossible. Torture was used to extract confessions, whether true or false. Your fate often rested in the hands of a local magistrate who might be corrupt, prejudiced, or simply overworked. You are utterly powerless against the system, a tiny cog in a vast impersonal mechanism of justice. This inherent power imbalance contributes to the pervasive sense of dread. This system, born from Confucian ideals of order and a desire for stability, ironically created a society where fear was a constant undercurrent. It shaped behavior, suppressed dissent, and maintained hierarchy. But at a profound human cost, the aim was not necessarily to be fair in a modern sense, but to be effective in maintaining the king's rule and social harmony, even if that harmony was built on silent terror. You learn to live cautiously, to blend in, to avoid any action that might draw the terrifying gaze of the authorities. A dark, perhaps cynical, joke you might hear circulating in the shadow of the execution ground. In Chosun, the only thing more certain than death is the punishment that follows it. For you, and your family, and even your great-grandfather's ghost. It's a grim attempt to cope with a reality so terrifying it demands morbid humor. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the chilling echoes of Chosun justice settle deeply. Imagine a world where every step, every word, every thought is weighed against the terrifying, pervasive reach of the law. You feel the ghostly chill of a system designed to instill absolute fear, a fear that seeped into the very soul of the nation, shaping lives and destinies, ensuring order through the constant threat of agonizing pain, public disgrace, and even posthumous ruin. It's a truly horrifying thought, isn't it? That the ultimate goal of justice could be to make you, and everyone around you, utterly, completely afraid. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient fear and the pervasive reach of Chosun justice. We've journeyed through every horrifying facet: the physical torments, the public shaming, the social death of exile, the agonizing family burdens. the posthumous disgraces, and the chilling, ever-present fear that permeated daily life. Now, as our story of Chosun punishments draws to a close, you are left to consider its enduring legacy, death's lingering embrace. You contemplate a life defined by pervasive illness. Imagine yourself a scholar, centuries later, poring over ancient texts from the CHOSUN Dynasty. You read the detailed accounts of laws, of crimes, and of the meticulously described punishments. You see the chilling efficiency with which the state sought to maintain order, not just through abstract principles, but through the visceral application of pain, humiliation, and eradication. The sheer inventiveness of the punishments. From the nuanced cruelty of the honorable silk cord to the terrifying breadth of familial implication, speaks volumes about a society obsessed with control and deterrence. The legacy of these disturbing punishments is multifaceted. On one hand, they undoubtedly contributed to a remarkably stable and long-lasting dynasty. The Chosun period, spanning over 5 centuries, was one of the longest continuous dynasties in Korean history. You might argue that this stability was, in part, a direct result of the deeply ingrained fear of the law, ensuring a high degree of social obedience and conformity. The threat of severe penalties, coupled with a strong emphasis on Confucian morality, helped to maintain a hierarchical and orderly society, with few large-scale rebellions compared to some other historical periods. However, the horrifying cost of this stability cannot be ignored. The pervasive fear fostered by such a system inevitably suppressed individual expression, critical thought, and social mobility. You can almost feel the weight of self-censorship, the constant anxiety that prevented people from speaking freely or challenging the status quo. Innovation might have been stifled, and genuine justice sometimes compromised, in the relentless pursuit of order and conformity. Historians still debate the long-term societal effects of Chosun's harsh legal system. Did it ultimately strengthen or weaken the nation in the long run? Some argue it created a resilient and highly organized society, while others contend it bred an oppressive atmosphere that hindered progress and led to internal stagnation. The memory of these punishments lingered long after their active use, even into the modern era. The stories of the Taehyung or the Kal, of family implication for treason, would be whispered warnings passed down through generations. These tales, sometimes exaggerated, served to reinforce cultural norms and a respect for authority, but also perhaps left a subtle, lingering scar on the collective psyche. You might see modern retellings of these punishments in historical dramas, still capable of sending a shiver down your spine, reminding you of a time when justice was a far more brutal affair. Consider how such a system shaped the very character of the people. Did it create a population that was inherently more disciplined, more respectful of elders and authority? Or did it cultivate a deep-seated distrust of power, a tendency towards quiet conformity rather than overt rebellion? The chilling efficiency of Chosun justice, its systematic approach to pain and social degradation, left an indelible mark not just on the bodies of the condemned, but on the very soul of the nation. A little-known detail is that while many of these brutal punishments existed in theory, or were applied in extreme cases, reform efforts did occur at various points within the dynasty, with some kings attempting to mitigate the harsher aspects of the penal code. However, the underlying principles of collective responsibility and the use of physical torment to extract confessions largely persisted until much later periods, often under foreign influence. This shows a constant tension between the desire for order and the human cost of achieving it. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the final echoing chill of Chosun justice settle around you. You've journeyed through its intricate and horrifying mechanisms, witnessing how a society sought to maintain order through fear and absolute control. The punishments were not just acts of retribution. They were carefully designed instruments to shape behavior, to enforce hierarchy, and to instill a pervasive dread that reached far beyond the individual, stretching even beyond the grave. The legacy is one of profound stability, yes, but also of immense human suffering and a lingering sense of awe at the sheer, terrifying power wielded by an ancient state. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? To consider a society where life itself was constantly defined by the omnipresent threat of agonizing, far-reaching punishment.